Good afternoon, everyone. It's Wednesday. It's 1 p.m. on the eastern seaboard of the United States. And you know what time it is? That's right. It's Hump Day, the only day where you get the dynamic duo of the one and only Big Square, the Baron of Bitcoin, the Tsar of crypto, the Pathfinder on the road to Ruda, the Gandalf of gold, the Sultan of silver himself, and the what can I call you? The agenda analyst from the road to Ruda. None other than Bix Weir. Bix, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, it's been a while since we talked. I think, yeah. CJ's been doing your job for you last couple.
I know. I'm a horrible partner. I leave my man CJ out there. He's like, it's the worst. It's like Batman just chilling out and Robin's doing all the dirty work.
Yeah, who knows what you're doing behind the scenes?
Nobody knows.
It's a don't ask, don't tell situation.
Hey, you and I were talking off the air. You can be sitting there bottomless doing this interview, and I can be sitting here topless doing this interview. And it's just who knows what's going on? No one knows. No one knows.
Jamie Dimon knows. Apparently, he is an expert at Bitcoin.
He is, especially since his company spent hundreds of millions of dollars to replicate a blockchain, and hiring out Blythe Masters and her firm along with Larry Summers, and they failed miserably. They were DOA, dead on arrival. But Jamie Dimon knows a fraud when he sees a fraud. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, he called Bitcoin. That's a direct quote. He said Bitcoin is a fraud. But this isn't the only time he said this.
Yeah.
The best is on January 23rd. He told CNBC that, quote, Bitcoin is a terrible store of value. It could be replicated over and over again. This is when Bitcoin was $800. And he's saying now that Bitcoin's a fraud. And here's the best. He said he would fire any trader known to be trading the cryptocurrency for being stupid.
Wow.
Unbelievable. So he would fire a trader that bought Bitcoin at $800, and it's what, 4,000 today.
Yeah.
And let's see, that was 2014. What was Jamie Dimon doing with other traders? What about December of 2011?
You mean the London Whale?
The London Whale kicked in, a $9 billion loss at least.
150 billion after it was all the dust settled.
Oh yeah,
150 billion.
And Bruno Ixel later came out and said, "Oh, by the way, I was doing everything according to the orders of Jamie Dimon directly."
Yep.
So which trader should be fired is what I want to know.
Well, Bruno Ixel was never fired.
No, he wasn't.
And that trade led to a body count. It was never fired.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's insane. But everybody's saying, oh yeah, that's what is driving the cryptos lower. Everybody who owns cryptos, I would say most everybody, would laugh at what Jamie Dimon says about Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies.
Because Jamie Dimon talks as if he's like, people look at him like he has some sort of authority.
No, he's such a criminal.
He's the worst. He's one of the worst. I don't know who's worse, him or Blankfein. It's a toss-up. It's like Dr. Doom or Dr. Octopus. Like, it's a toss-up for me, man.
Well, an interesting thing, if you go back and kind of look at the losses from the London Whale, Jamie Dimon knew about those losses at the end of the fourth quarter in 2011, but he still signed off on the quarterly SEC financial reports and the annual reports without mentioning it. It's called a material omission. And he could be in jail for that, but did anything happen to him? No. And then when Bruno Ixel decided to turn in Jamie Dimon, what happened? They dropped the case against Ixel. That's how criminal this situation is.
Yeah, it's hugely criminal. Yeah, so Bitcoin's a fraud. As according to the one and only wondrous Jamie the derivative Dimon himself said it. But all the derivatives that Jamie trades that are so far removed from any sort of underlying asset, those aren't frauds, apparently, Bix.
No.
Because they've been blessed by the SEC. So therefore it's not a fraud.
It's not a fraud because Jamie Dimon has never lost a penny in those trades. That's the
Never. Except for the CDN I9 derivative IR swap market, which Bruno blew out for him after the perfect.
Other than that, we don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that. But other than that, They've never had a bad trading day, J.P. Morgan.
The other thing is, I mean, if you total up all the J.P. Morgan fines, because they don't, when they do something criminal, they don't go to jail. No one gets fired. They just pay a fine, and it's part of the cost of doing business. If you add those up, I mean, they've had years over $20 billion in fines, but because they're making $100 billion in other secret deals, they don't care. And
that's the bribe, man. That's the bribe.
Yeah, it's the cost of doing business. When you're a criminal, you got to pay off the regulators. You got to pay off the cops. Everybody's on the dole. You got to pay off your presidents and your congressmen, and that's just the cost of doing business.
Hey, let's go talk about some of the wonderful fraud by J.P. Morgan. How about when they settled in 2011 for $150 million for misleading CDO investments? How about that for fraud? How about the anti-competitive conduct on municipal bond fraud that they were involved in?
That's a good one.
Yeah. How about robo-signing? Remember that, Bix? That was fun, wasn't it?
That's a good one.
Or mortgage misrepresentation in the MERS case, or improper foreclosure, or electricity trading scandal. Remember that one? That was fun. The electricity trading scandal.
Oh,
illegal credit card practices. The London Whale, Fannie and Freddie finds institutional mortgage securities on MBS.
Come on, there's one big one you're missing.
LIBOR rigging, baby.
Keep going.
Misleading. There's more taxes. The Madoff one. Let's not forget that.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, there's even another one where they got dinged hard as well. Remember currency manipulation? Them and Citibank and Citigroup and RBS thought it was a wonderful idea to get involved in currency manipulation. I love it.
I think the biggest glaring cover-up is the Madoff fraud. They were Bernie Madoff's only banker.
Yep.
So they signed off on every deal, and every deal went through the one. There was one contact. I forgot the guy's name, but everything had to be signed off by the board of J.P. Morgan of the Madoff deal. And this is not a situation where there's a couple guys in the family, Bernie Madoff, who ran a scam that was only $50 billion. This is a huge operation. In the second, the floor below the Madoff offices was a computer rigging trading floor. This was how the Mossad was getting paid off. This is how all the criminals are getting paid off, is through the Madoff fund. And that was all going through J.P. Morgan. They only had one banker, one person in charge of it, and the SEC regulator. Where was the regulator? He was off marrying a Madoff cousin or something to that effect.
Yep, absolutely.
And what about the accounting agencies that are supposed to sign off on this stuff? Every single year and Jamie Dimon signing off on it, every single year that this fraud was going on is more jail time for Jamie Dimon because he signed the financial reports. Mm-hmm. And it's not like when you're a banker, when you're a bank regulator or a banker in charge of one client, it is your job to know your customer. It always has been your job to know your customer. They knew that Bernie Madoff was writing checks and paying money, not to himself, but to other people behind the scenes that they don't want to talk about. They don't want to tell you about. They don't want to tell anybody about. They're financing all kinds of real bad crap through that Madoff fund. And when the regulator and the bank is in on it, which they absolutely were in on it, that's a huge conspiracy. That deserves life in jail, if not more.
Absolutely, man. I think right now, as it stands, a drum roll, please. Total fines is probably over $40 billion right now, as it stands for J.P. Morgan. But that's just the cost of doing business. But Bitcoin's a fraud, Bix. Bitcoin's a fraud.
Yeah. And then the weird thing when he gave that interview, I think it's yesterday or something, he said it's worse than tulip bulbs. It won't end well. Somebody is going to get killed. Now, what is he trying to say there? Is he trying to say financially or something else?
With Diamond, you never know, because I remember when it was the guy Gabriel something. See, I need to get back on fish oils with the quickness. I'm losing my mind here. He was the head of the trading desk at the J.P. Morgan headquarters in the city of London when he was thrown off the 33rd floor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the trading desk that Blythe Masters was at. That's the trading desk where Bruno Ixo was at. That's all their derivatives were traded out of the city of London.
Exactly. And Gabriel was thrown out of there. And then Ryan, his partner Ryan, who is heading the trading desk in New York, okay, he's the other side of the head of the trading desk over here. Him and Gabriel will be talking all the time because one thing about City of London and Wall Street is they are in constant communication all the time. So what happened to Ryan? Well, Ryan goes home and mysteriously drops dead of a heart attack. The kid's like 30-something years old, like 33 or 35 years old. That's it. Just drops dead.
Yeah.
You know? Gabriel, same thing. He's telling his girlfriend, I'll be home for dinner. He gets thrown off a building. And, of course, they say it's a suicide. The kid makes like $300,000 a year base, you know, and they're saying it's a suicide. You know? It's absolutely egregious. And the list of over the JP Morgan banker that jumped off a building in Hong Kong. Another JP Morgan banker was whacked in Singapore. Another one came up dead. Diamond, you know something about death, buddy. You're talking about a Clinton body count. We should have a Jamie Dimon body count.
We should. I mean, it wouldn't be as high as the Clintons, but it would be up there.
Nothing would be as high as the Clinton Easton.
Well, but that's the other thing. How many banksters are to blame for these wars that we're fighting with? Millions die.
All of them.
Exactly. And all of them. It's so bad, and it's gone on for so long. And I hope things are going to change. We are kind of in that hot spot when things can change. Trump kicking the can down the road as far as the budget. What does that tell me? It tells me they're going to blow this thing out and start spending money even faster than Obama did in order to destroy the system. That's the whole idea. Print as much money as possible, soaking up all the benefits of unbacked fiat money, and then one day just blow the system up and never have to pay anything off. Because, who do we pay it off with? We can pay it off today if we wanted. We just, tell the mint to make a silver coin and put $100 trillion as the face value and use that coin to pay off every piece of debt in the U.S.
You're talking about the Paul Krugman, I sniff cat urine Krugman?
Yeah.
His method?
That would do it, but it would highlight the fraud that is the debt, debt that was created from thin air and will return to the thin air. What is it really? It's faith and confidence in debt. And yeah, you can make that disappear with a blink of an eye.
It's our full faith and confidence that we have full faith and confidence that the United States government, in full faith and confidence, will print it to oblivion.
Well, that's the other thing that Jamie Dimon said when he was talking about Bitcoin. He said, if you were in Venezuela or Ecuador or North Korea or a bunch of parts like that, I don't know what that means, you're better off doing it in Bitcoin than US dollars. So there may be a market for that. So and then he went on to say, but the US, no, there's no market for Bitcoin in the US. And the Bitcoin or the U.S. financial situation is more dire than any other country. We are the largest debtor nation in the world.
Yes.
So basically, Dimon's saying, all these countries that are. Yeah.
Let me ask you this: how much debt does North Korea have outside of its borders?
I have no idea.
0. How much debt does Iran have outside of its borders?
0.
All right. How much debt does China have outside of its borders? 0.
Well, no, I think they play with that now because the U.S. has been playing with it.
No, they have no outstanding bonds held by foreign creditors.
Well, there you go.
So who has the most? Who's Heidi holding, $4.5 trillion in Euroclear in Belgium? Who's doing that?
That's the U.S.
So there's no market here. There's no market here for Bitcoin Bix.
That's nothing compared to the hundreds of trillions in outstanding obligations for the U.S. Social Security, Medicare, you name it. The amount of money that is owed, but that was always the idea. Run it up as hard and fast as possible, soaking up all the benefits, build your road, bridges, infrastructure, highways, military, and then when everything gets way out of control, blow up the system and return to a gold standard was always the plan. That's what the Road to Ruta plan was all about, that the Fed Boston wrote about. But that's the thing. It's gone on for so long. The people who invented this plan don't have to deal with the aftermath. They're all like old or dead.
Yeah, they're halfway about to croak, or you're like Greenspan, where you're talking about the efficacy of gold and how he's back to being a gold bug.
Yeah, well, yeah, he always was. if you read my work on
Yeah, he was.
Greenspan, he always was. He's a computer genius. That guy is.
He's an Ayn Rand acolyte.
He invented the first computer programs. That's why he got put as the head of the Fed. He was the biggest gold bug in the world, and then he got put as head of the Fed by Reagan. Everybody's like, "What the hell is Reagan thinking? What is going on here?" And it was all about the computer market rigging that Greenspan had been doing since the 60s. I mean, he invented the first banking computer programs. He blamed himself for the Y2K problem because he only programmed 2 digits instead of 4. I mean, that's the thing that the world doesn't know about. Him and his buddy, I forgot the guy's name, who I just figured out.
John something.
I thought it was this guy Stephen DeVoe, who was another computer programmer.
John something, guy John.
I can find it. I'll track it down. But he ran the hardware basically for Greenspan.
Yeah. Yep.
And when Greenspan opened an office in New York, he had his office, which was always clean and tidy to meet with clients. And then right next door in the secret room, he had computer banks and computer programs running all the time. And that's exactly what has happened. They hired Greenspan to rig the markets, to prolong the unbacked system. And it still goes on today. It's unbelievable that this has gone on so long.
No, it truly is, my man. It really, really is unbelievable. What else is on your radar, man?
I watched the Kitco had an interview with Jeffrey Christian. Oh my God, that guy makes my skin crawl.
Oh, what happened?
That's the guy. He's saying, "Oh, there's no such thing as gold manipulation and blah blah blah."
Of course, Bix. And Bitcoin is fraud, and there's no gold manipulation. This broadcast is getting even better by the second.
Yeah, I mean, he completely bypasses all the criminality. Deutsche Bank basically settles out of court for hundreds of millions of dollars on manipulation charges. There's massive amount of manipulation.
My whole did the reporter even ask? Did the reporter even press upon Christensen about that fact?
Yeah. Well, no, not really. She said, "Well, what about all the GATA folks who claim there's manipulation?" And Jeffrey Christian, they know nothing. What Christian doesn't say is that he is one of the main architects of the commodity derivatives. His biggest clients are J.P. Morgan, HSBC, and Deutsche Bank.
Yeah,
that's what he should be saying. And as a matter of fact, Jeffrey Christian came from Jay Aaron after Goldman bought him. Goldman figured out, hey, there's no analysts in the commodity sector outside of Jay Aaron, but if we buy Jay Aaron and we take their commodity division, we need to spin off somebody. Let's take Jeff Christian and turn him into his own company, CPM Group, that can provide third-party confirmation that all our bad deeds are not actually bad deeds. That's just the way a market's supposed to work. Right. It's insane what has happened. It's insane that people listen to Jeff Christian still. GATA has proven him wrong 100,000 times. And, watching the Kitco interview, and it's Daniela Cabroni. She's been there forever. But she either doesn't get it, or the other thing, which I think is more likely, is that Kitco has a pooled account that you can invest in metals in a pooled account. If you look at the numbers on a pooled account, the commissions are just tiny. So why would anybody have a pooled account unless they don't actually buy the metal? They go out and invest the money, and it's a Ponzi scheme. And I've talked about that a lot with the Perth Mint. They actually closed their pooled account down, unallocated pooled account, but Kitco still has it going. So yeah, Kitco can't say, hey, there's conspiracy and rigging in the metals market, because, by the way, we're doing the exact same thing with our pooled accounts.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and that's why, if anybody says they have a pooled account, understand that is not part of the Good Delivery network. Good Delivery.
Well, you look at that, like what Morgan Stanley got sued for. Guy was holding silver certificates that were backed by metal with he had the serial numbers, and Morgan Stanley was charging them rent the whole time. It turns out they didn't have it. They never had it. They just had a certificate, but they kept charging him rent for storing the metal. And so
that's called a Ponzi scheme, man.
Well, exactly, and that's what goes on in the metals.
Yeah,
absolutely.
What if you and I were to do that? We started Bix and V's Metal Emporium. Come store with us. And all of a sudden, people are buying. Hey, I want to put in an order for $500, $1,000, $2,000. A couple thousand here, a couple thousand there, 10,000 here, 50,000 there, and there's no metal. That's a Ponzi scheme.
It is a Ponzi scheme, absolutely. But that's the way the metals markets work. And if you read the book on Mark Rich, Metalmen, if you ever read that book, Metalmen, you'll get the idea of just how shady the commodities markets
You're talking about the Mark Rich who was set free?
Yeah, Mark Reich.
You talking about Mark Rich that I let free? You talking about him, Bix?
That's the same guy. He was on the FBI most wanted list for decades.
And that's then, right. And then he gifted me some cigars, and I let him go free because what I do with a cigar, right, Bix?
I know, Bill. What happened was Bill Clinton hired, along with Robert Rubin, hired Mark Rich to rig the commodity markets, the physical side of the commodity markets, for the strong dollar policy. And that was the whole idea in the early 90s. They're running the strong dollar policy with Mark Rich running around, shifting physical commodities everywhere around the world, places that it's illegal to trade. That's that's what he did. And he was one of the richest men in the world. He died recently, but his company's still, Glencore is still out there, Trafigura is still out there, and they are still rigging the markets. They use computers a lot more now. They're basically the backside of the commodity derivatives held by J.P. Morgan, by Deutsche Bank, by HSBC. It's Mark Rich's companies that Glencore is public and Trafigura is private. So they try to stick all the private stuff in Trafigura. It's just a con. The whole thing is a huge con. And the regulators are either too stupid to figure it out, which is a lot of them, or just so corrupt that there's nothing they can do about it.
Sure. Exactly correct.
And it won't end until the United States makes it end. And because the United States controls the computers for the most part that pull these market manipulations off. And when the United States is ready to go off the unbacked fiat money system, they can stop rigging the commodities. But until they're ready to do that, they're going to continue to rig the markets. Every time you see the price of silver or gold go up or down, that's exactly what it is. It's market rigging is allowed to move one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly. What else, brother?
Let's talk about a hurricane that's headed right up your back door.
Oh, no, not Jose.
Either Jose or the one behind it, but I think it's Jose.
No, Mama Sway.
The Jose's been running around, dancing little circles in the Atlantic.
I don't like the way he's dancing in the Atlantic. It's just,
I know.
Why did come on. All of us that have been hearing about weather weapons have to really be thinking. Like, look at Harvey. Harvey goes onto land, comes back out into water, and then goes back into land. And then Irma just strengthened from a category nothing to a category 5.
Well, Irma, it's interesting because Irma was a Cat 4, was about to hit Florida, and then all of a sudden the backside just died. And that's where all the real strong winds are.
Right.
So maybe there was a counter weather war maneuver going on, but it's still causing massive problems and huge destruction.
Huge, man. And look at the problems that Jose's just sitting out there, just not moving, just sitting there.
And power. I know, but you look at the models, and the models keep changing every day. Some days it'll have it destroying the whole eastern seaboard, and some days it'll just be hovering out. And the farthest in models now show it going towards the East Coast, going up, not hitting the East Coast, but then circling back again and coming back towards the United States. Nobody knows what these people we have had the ability to steer storms like this since the 1930s.
Yeah, or the 50s at the latest.
Well, the early scientists in the late 1800s were doing this in Italy, supposedly.
Yeah, cloud seeding, supposedly.
And once nobody talks about it. If they can't control the storms, why did they have that storm sit over Texas? Why did they have the storm right up the gut of Florida? I mean,
Yeah.
if you can steer the storms a weekend or less, and why not just steer it out to sea?
Yep.
Because there's another agenda going on.
No, exactly correct, man.
So from my point of view, we are in the hot spot as far as the economic system. There might be even negotiations going on behind the scenes that the bad guys say, hey, unless you bail out this bank or this derivative situation, we're going to fire Jose right at the Eastern Seaboard and destroy everything from Washington D.C. to New York.
I get it. So what they're basically saying is, hey, listen here. What they're saying is, if you don't let us bail out the banks, we're gonna send the Jose right up your culo.
Wow, that's good Spanish. But yeah, I mean, I think that something like that might be going on, or they're just. Definitely Jose is gonna cause something, and it's in Cliff's data. And Cliff was telling me a couple of weeks ago when everybody was looking at Hurricane Irma, he's like, well, the data says it's not Irma that causes the real damage. It's the one after it. And I don't think it was even named at that time as Jose.
It probably is going to be Jose. And they aptly named it Jose in honor of all the dreamers and migrants that will be leaving or have left under the Trump administration.
And it is aimed
at New York.
Right at Washington D.C. moving up to New York.
I hope it hits Washington, just stays over Washington D.C. and everybody
fills the swamp. It drowns the swamp.
That'd be wonderful. Just airlift the president out and let everybody else just drown. Just in D.C., just in the capital area, and then all the innocent people out. Just the politicians, let them all die.
Well, why not just arrest them all? Why not just stick them all in jail for all the crimes?
I would love to. You heard about the what's his name, Imran Awan, and that whole Debbie Wasserman Schultz thing.
His wife is coming back. Do you hear that?
Yep. Look, think about it. This woman is in Pakistan. It's a non-extraditor. There's no extradition in Pakistan, and this girl's coming back to testify.
Yep.
I mean, think about that.
She cut a deal.
She cut a deal. She got total immunity.
The question is, will she make it?
That is the question, because that was the first thing I thought about. I'm like, anybody who's taking Pakistani Airlines on the way back from Karachi to JFK or Dulles, better make sure that woman is not on the same flight as you. Yeah, because I don't know if that plane's going to make it, bro.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. So she's supposed to come into town, what is it, by the end of the month or something like that?
Yeah, like right around the corner.
So if she's coming into Washington, D.C., if you have a hurricane hitting Washington, D.C. before she makes it, she'll just have to delay that trip.
Yeah, and then she conveniently winds up committing suicide by shooting herself 10 times with a cuticle remover.
With a drone.
Yeah, she droned herself.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happened. Somehow she droned herself. She hung herself with a drone. That's what's going to happen. Just anything can happen. Any kind of craziness, man.
And it is happening. I mean, the craziness is happening left and right. And but that was kind of always the thought about this time in the process. Trump was given a certain amount of time to fix things. He can't do it, obviously. So they're going to have to pull some strings behind the scenes. If they're going to take out the bad guys, they're going to have to do it in a messy way now. Yeah. And that messy way might just be that market crash type of thing. Although I think they just have banks crash here and there, and they'll get bailed out, and they'll just keep getting bailed out, but nothing will really be dealt with and settled, and then the cryptos will grow alongside. That's the other thing I want to talk about is we are approaching a new crocodile's tooth, which is what Cliff calls the ups and downs of the cryptos. Bitcoin, historically, if you look at the markets and the trends and all that crap on the charts, when it falls about 30%, and then it runs up the next crocodile tooth. We're about 25% right now. It drops another 5%. If you're going to time the bottom, I can't time bottoms. Nobody can time bottoms. But we're getting right near that point of timing the bottom for the next move up. And the next move up, according to Cliff's data, is $6,800 per Bitcoin. And then it dives down again, and then it shoots up to, I think it's $13,000 by February of next year. So if you're not into the cryptos yet, you should load up. If you are already loaded up, maybe make some shift from one crypto that hasn't lost that much to one that you think is massively undervalued. I think Veritasium is massively undervalued right now. It's around
it's seriously.
And we're right in the sweet spot when Reggie's going to announce, in September, he's supposed to announce where we are with the Jamaican Stock Exchange crypto exchange that he's set up, the Veritasium exchange. So that's going to be huge news. And I think this is your last chance to buy Veritasium if you haven't loaded up already.
Yeah, I think Veritasium is going to be hot. And I think also, I mean, there's a lot of great cryptos, man. I mean,
there are, absolutely.
I'm still bullish on Litecoin.
Oh, Litecoin is going to be the monster, but that's not really going to hit.
That's also a fraud. That's also a fraud, Dix.
Litecoin's not going to really come into view until the means of exchange starts falling apart, as the banks start collapsing, because Litecoin is going to take over from where Bitcoin left off as a means of exchange. Bitcoin wants to be a store of value. They don't want to be cheap. They don't want to be fast. They want Bitcoin to be seen as the gold, whereas Litecoin wants to be cheap, wants to be fast, and wants to be used as it wants to be used when people want to buy a cup of coffee. And so I think a huge amount of wealth will flow into Litecoin over the next 6 months to a year. You can't even imagine how much wealth will jump in there. It's kind of like when Ethereum was not really known what it could do, and it was trading around $6-7, and then it jumped to 400. That's what Litecoin is going to do. It's trading around $70. It'll jump over 1,000 in a blink of an eye once people realize that Bitcoin is not a means of exchange, and Litecoin is going to fulfill that spot.
Yep, absolutely. And another thing that I'm also bullish on?
No, I don't.
It's what Satoshi, he, them, they, it wanted to begin with, is anonymity. Monero, baby.
Well, yeah. Monero's known as the coin. If you're looking to hide, Monero's the coin to be. But then, I mean, you still gotta somewhere get it out online if you want to sell it for something else.
Yep.
But yeah, I that's what I heard too. Monero is for hiding. I'm
all about hiding, Bix. That's why I am hiding behind this camera. I only peek myself up to you, so you know.
I know. Everybody out there. I saw the hairy man today. As he was setting up his video cam. Luckily, he had his clothes on this time, so it's all good.
Yep. I mean, don't I not look like the Jack Link's Sasquatch?
You're a very handsome man, V.
That's what I keep telling people. I am probably one of the most handsome men in all of alt media. They should have an alt media men's calendar.
Yeah, but nobody knows what you look like. Well, yours would just be a black screen.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you go to the month of January, and it's just this black thing, and then you turn the page and you have Alex Jones with his shirt off. Remember that photo?
Yeah. Oh God,
Mr. January. It's just a black screen. Oh man. I don't want to be famous. I like being able to walk around. I like to go into places like the city and stuff, and nobody knows me. I like that.
I met with one of my customers. Somebody bought I do these roadside chats where I charge people for an hour's consulting, and they give me a list of questions, and
roadside chats. Literally, you come up in your Wrangler, you drive up onto their front porch.
No, I drove the scooter this time. No, but
I get it. So they jump on your scooter.
Yeah, no,
they're sitting in the back, and you guys are talking.
We met in an undisclosed location, but this is the first time. It's usually on the phone. It's an hour phone conversation.
Yeah.
And but he's like, "Hey, I live in your neighborhood. Why don't we just meet somewhere and we can chat this time?" I go, "Cool." So we met down one of my favorite restaurants down Jack London Square in Oakland.
Yeah.
And it was fun. Yeah, he's a great guy, and he gets it. He's he's a current banker, so I can't reveal his name, but he's like, "Yeah, I see what you see. The banks are not long for this world." So a lot of what we talked about was the new jobs and the new fields that will be opened up when the cryptos really get implemented. and there'll be a lot of need for people to work in certain areas. So yeah, it's exciting.
Oh, absolutely, my man. Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly.
Just imagine if all these,
it's a whole new world.
All the hidden technologies are open and revealed, and to humanity, all the free energy stuff and the flying cars. That's what Cliff's all excited about. I think he says they start coming out next year.
No,
yeah,
no.
The Jetson world.
I've already had enough of the driverless cars.
No, but you'll be flying them. So it's like being a freaking jet pilot.
Bix, people could barely drive. Do you expect them to fly now? It's scary.
Well, there'll be a lot of, but see, that's the thing. There'll be a lot of technology in that vehicle that wards off crashing into another flying car. But look up in the sky right now. Look how much room there is, and look how much room there is on the streets of New York, and you'll say, "Oh my God, we can just go up."
Yeah, we could go up. We could go up, and
I know you're a big a motorhead, but you can get into the horsepower in your new car that flies too.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right.
You're too old school.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. There's certain cars I have that is just going to appreciate in value, and I've seen the price jumps on many of some of these models, and it's sad to me, man. I look at this upcoming generation, and they have no interest in driving. They have no interest in cars. They think the Tesla is the greatest thing to slice, but it's a piece of crap, and they don't get it. They don't get it, man. And here I am. I'm just, driving around. I, go to my Starbucks. I have my BMW Motorsports shirt on and pull up in my hopped up M3, and people have no clue. They just have no clue. They're like, what kind of car is that?
Wouldn't you be excited to have a flying car? Or even a hovercraft?
No, I would do a flying car. Okay. I would have a flying car if it allowed me total control. And it was highly maneuverable. Then I'm all about it. Then because humanity has many needs.
They're not like run with fans and jetpacks on the back. They'd be run with anti-gravity type of technology.
Oh, then I'm all about it. Then sign me up and take out the autopilot. Let me pilot the bad boy. Give me at least 400 miles an hour. I'll be happy with that. I prefer Mach 1, but I don't think I can handle the G-forces as well as most people.
I hear you.
But give me 400. I'm happy with 400 miles an hour. That'd be cool. I can fly around in that. And dude, I mean, speed is a wonderful thing. You look at the universe. Everything is movement is moving in a constant state of speed. I mean, think about it. The Earth is flying at 30,000, 50,000 miles per hour, hurtling through space.
Yep.
Sun's rays are moving at hundreds of thousands of miles per hour. You know what this tells me? It tells me that God loves speed.
You're so deep. You're so deep.
And he wants us to be fast.
I agree. That's why
anti-gravity cars. I'm telling you, it's the work of the devil with these self-driving cars that limit your speed limit, makes you follow all the rules of law. My better half would say, you don't really follow the lines when you're taking corners and stuff. And I'm looking at it, honey, I'm not about following the lines. I'm all about hitting the apex. That's the kind of guy I am, man. God loves speed, Bix.
Your poor wife. Poor girl. What she has to put up with.
I know. There's an award, man. It's unreal.
She'll win it.
There's an award.
All right, man. Anyway. Well, that's kind of all I had today, and I'm still giving out a zillion Road to Ruta coins. If anybody's interested in getting a Road to Ruta coin, for private road 1-year membership, go to roadtoruta.com.
Yep, absolutely. And believe me, the Road to Ruta coin that Bix sent CJ and I, it's been a beautiful coin. I immediately got it. I looked at it. I was marveled by it, and I quickly put it away in my safe alongside the rest of my silver and gold and my cryptocurrency wallets.
Nice. You're set.
You're all set. Thank you. Yeah. Folks, that does it for the day. Follow Bix, roadtoruta.com. Subscribe to his YouTube channel, Road to Ruta. Monkey Mayhem and the Ape Masters himself, CJ and I. We're at roguemoney.net along with the rest of the crew, Ken Georgian, James the Russian Analyst, Banks the Slayer, and Wolf Gray. With that being said, we're over and out. Take it away, CJ.